Hey guys, welcome to Currently Cringing. It's been a minute, and that is because we have been all over the place. So on Thursday, May 16th, I took the red eye from Phoenix to New York because I had the 40th birthday of a very dear close friend, Rachi. She turned 40 and she had her fabulous birthday in New York City at Zero Bond, which is a private members club in Soho. And it was just epic. I mean, everyone was there, all our friends, and it was the best night ever. It even got me inspired for my 40th birthday because I'm turning 40 in September. And originally I wanted to have a party, like kind of the wedding I never had in the south of France, but no one can make it because a bunch of us are turning 40 this year and everyone's turning 40 before me and everyone's planning trips or these fabulous parties. And so people don't have days left by the time my birthday comes around in September, which is fine. So I think I'm going to have a party in Miami with all my closest friends and family and then go to the south of France with my husband. I've always wanted to go to Monaco, Cannes, and all those places and have souffle and just do the whole thing. I've heard it's stunning. And I thought it would be a fun trip for me and my husband. And it's not really a trip where you have to schlep and do a lot of things because those trips, while I love them, they are exhausting. So it's like going to Rome, right? If you've never been to Rome, there's just so much to see in Rome and Florence. It's like a lot of history, a lot of monuments. Whereas the south of France, I feel like you could just stroll and island hop and have your souffle and champs and walk around and look pretty. That's really what I'm looking for. And then, as you know, I loved Doha so much. If you listen to the South Africa podcast episode, I loved Doha so much, but in September, it's still 108 degrees there, maybe even more. So the weather's not right. And so I would have actually gone there for my birthday just because it was luxury at an unbelievable price, but it's hot as fuck. So no, thank you. So we landed in New York City and straight from the airport, I got to my hotel. I was lucky enough to get a room at 7 a.m. and I showered and went straight to the podcast studio. And I've recorded about 8 episodes with my dear friend, Susan Globus, who you will be hearing about and from soon. I just don't know if I should add those episodes to Currently Cringing or create a whole separate podcast. Me and Susan go way back. She was my coworker and BFF for many years in New York. And ironically enough, her sister was our boss, like the big kahuna. But she was my ride or die. Like she was the one that was there for me when I sliced my palm open with the mandolin, slicing potatoes because I was in my cooking phase and I wanted to make pomme Anna, which is like a French sliced potato dish, kind of like potatoes au gratin, but not. And was at the ER with a Zephyr Hills bottle full of vodka. You know, like that was the person that was there for me. She was my emergency contact in New York City. So we recorded a podcast, which I don't know if I'm going to add to this or create a new one, but we recorded for about 8 hours because she has a lot to say and I can't wait for you guys to hear everything she has to share about her life and everything that's going on right now with her. And then I met up with some friends at their home, Nancy and Gaurav, my dear friends in New York City. We went to their house for dinner and I was there till about 2 a.m. And so you've already got 1 day of red-eye flights, 3 hours of sleep, and then sleeping at 2 a.m. And Nancy's celebrating her birthday in Marbella, Spain this coming week, except I can't make it to that because my husband's birthday is coming up and he wants to go to Japan. So we're actually going to Japan. I already went to Japan in 2012 with my mom and my sister. I know I've got a lot of recording to do for you guys because I have a whole like travel life and foodie life that I can share insights on with you guys. I just know so much about travel and food, but you know, it takes time to compile all that information and it was so long ago and I want to make all that information relevant for you guys so that if you go to any of those destinations now, like it would still be fun and cool. But yeah, so then I spent Saturday with a few of my friends at lunch, like Neil and Aditya, who you've heard on the podcast before. And then I got ready to go to Zero Bond for Rachi's 40th birthday. Now, I have been to many private members clubs because I just have friends in those circles who are members, but I personally would never pay to be part of a private members club. Like I remember in MBA now, my MBA days, we're talking 2007 to 2009. People were joining Soho House. That was when it was really chic and cool. I mean, now it's like, I don't know. I've been a few times now because they have the beach service at the Miami Soho House, which is always nice. And I have friends that are members. So it's nice to be like served at the beach, but it's not really it, you know, and they charge more if you're older. It's really weird. It's like age shaming. But a lot of these members clubs, they're just, you know, a place to be seen and mingle. And we were talking about all of them, and there's so many at the moment. But the one that I find value in, of course, is Aman, which is the one I went to. I talked about it 2 episodes ago when I went to New York the last time. I went because of Aditya, Ditz, pod co-host, friend of the show. He is a member. It's $200,000 to be a member. My friends Nancy and Gaurav are also members. Mind you, these are people who are my age, but they have become really successful. And so it's good to be surrounded by these people because they can afford this stuff. And it just definitely motivates me to work harder because Nancy and Gaurav, for example, my friends, they're self-made. They didn't come from money. No one handed anything to them. They've just come up the hard working way, the honest way. And Ditz, you know, Ditz works really hard. Ditz comes from money, but he works really hard. The guy's going to have to take over his family business. And that's a lot when your family business is companies all over the world. It's not a joke. And he's nonstop. He's been in like 6 continents this year so far, just traveling nonstop. It's exhausting, especially coming from me. You know, I didn't even have to go to all the continents. I just was traveling on my comedy tour, and that was exhausting. And speaking of exhausting, that's why I got sick, which is why I couldn't record. So I had Rachi's birthday, 40th birthday at Zero Bond. And then the next day, I just hung out with my friends in New York City. Usually I'm always on the go. I'm like, let me book the 5 a.m. flight, but that's taking its toll on me too. So the birthday party was Saturday night. I actually got back to the hotel room by midnight. And then Sunday, I spent it with my friend Gail, who was also at Rachi's birthday, who was also in town for her niece's graduation. Now, Gail was my neighbor in Miami for about 20 years, just like hot neighbor Julio. Julio and Gail were my neighbors for many years in Miami. And now Gail lives in Miami Beach and Julio has moved off on his own. He moved out of his parents' house. And so it's just nice to see all my friends again because believe it or not, it's depressing when I'm in Arizona. I'm on an island. I'm used to being with these people all the time and seeing them all the time. So it's like a treat now when I do get to see them because these are people I was used to seeing every day, really. And my New York friends and my New York life, you know, I was seeing them at least twice a month, once or twice a month. So now the good news is my time here is almost done. I moved back to Miami. Ta-da! Moving to Miami. Thank God. In August. And like I said before, everyone in Arizona was very kind, intelligent, probably the most intelligent, successful, kind people I've ever met were the people in Arizona, in Scottsdale. It's like a little, you know, mecca here, a little bubble. Everyone's successful, everyone's kind, everyone's humble and hardworking, but you know, I just didn't do well here. And after a certain age, in my case, 35 and over, you just want to be around your people. It doesn't matter, you know, who you meet. You've got your friends and your family unit and community established. And the people, I believe, are all that matter in life? Your friends and your family. That's all that life is about, quite frankly. And so if they're not in your life, then what's the point? Life isn't enjoyable at all. And that's my opinion. And so, just being out here was suffocating and depressing, especially for my career, kind of putting my career on pause, even though I did tour the country for 2 years and took advantage of that while I was here, because I had to fill the time with something to do. But I definitely put things on pause as far as my professional growth. And that's what you do when you meet someone who 10X's your life. I wouldn't just do that for anybody. I did that for my husband because at the time, like I've said before, my husband had just finished fellowship, and you would think doctors, they can get a job anywhere. Well, vascular surgery, it's a specialty, and not everyone was hiring after COVID because hospitals were bleeding money. Hospitals were broke because of COVID, and things are finally looking up in healthcare. And I say that, with a lot of caution because healthcare is a dumpster fire, and I should have a conversation about healthcare, with some experts because it's a whole new world for me. And now that I'm in this world with my husband and I see things for what they are, I mean, our healthcare system in the United States it's fucked up, for lack of better words. But anywho, I digress. And so Sunday, I hung out with Gail, and then I met up with Gail and Aditya after in the evening, and we both went to Sugarfish, which is a fun sushi place in the city that's also in LA. It's got some of the best sushi literally in America for the price that they offer. I mean, it's really hard to beat. And then, took the Monday morning flight at 9 a.m. to Miami. So now we've got like 2 flights, 3 nights with about 4 hours of sleep. And I went to Miami because it was my mom's birthday on May 22nd. And so we celebrated my mom's birthday. And I don't know if you guys have heard of this card game. I wouldn't say it's a game, but these questions on TikTok, it's called like story tales. And basically these are questions you ask your elders about, their life so you can preserve their memory and, their stories. And I bought this on Amazon. They have it on TikTok, but I bought it on Amazon. It's called like Story Tales, Life Story Tales. Like you can find it on Amazon. It was $12.99. And I spent the day with my grandparents. And remember, my grandfather's 90, going on 91, God willing, in October. And my grandmother's 85. And so it was cool to ask my grandmother all these questions because we kind of, I don't want to say ignore her because we do not ignore her. I think my grandfather gets all the attention because squeaky wheel gets the oil. We know this. And my grandfather is loud and rambunctious and boisterous and wants the attention. Whereas my grandmother's just this quiet, elegant lady. She is class personified. She will never complain. And she doesn't have much to say, but she's very observant. And so, it was lovely to ask her all these life questions. And I filmed it for my own personal records. It's not to post or anything. And what was really depressing was my grandfather. My grandfather isn't recalling much. And this is someone just as of last year that, had a lot to say. But he's been deaf, completely deaf for now a few years. But in the past 2 years, it's like the hearing is completely gone. There's no hearing aid, really nothing is helping. And so he goes by lip reading, but I was asking him these questions and he could read them off the card, but he just didn't recall much or he just wasn't in the mood. It was like I was bothering him, which is why I also don't film him anymore. I haven't filmed him in like the past 3 years. He just doesn't like it. But then he saw how my grandmother was answering the questions. She was so enthusiastic and he got a little jealous. And so I told my mom, you should ask him the questions because my mom, his daughter, is his favorite person. She really is. And she's a lot of people's favorite person, quite frankly. My mom is like the positive pillar in our family. And I think he would be more ecstatic and excited if she asked him all the questions. But, you know, thankfully, I know all his stories because he used to tell us all his stories all the time to the point where my mom and my grandmother would be like, we know, like, knock it off. Except it didn't matter how many times he had told me. I loved listening to all his stories. And so, we did that. And then we celebrated my mom's birthday. We just went out to lunch as a family, me, my parents, and my grandparents. And we cut the cake, and it was a fun day with my family. And then I woke up the next day completely ill. I was sick. And I told you guys earlier in some of the other episodes, ever since I got COVID, I have severe severe joint pain when I get sick. And it's only when I get sick, and it can be the lightest cold, but I get severe arthritic joint pain, even in my ears. And I recently found out, like, why do my ears hurt so much? Because my husband, who's a surgeon, he's like, there are no bones in the ear. Like, why do your ears hurt? And it happens like when I get sick, my ears throb and my joints throb, like to the point where even my pinky hurts. And so I have to be very strict and clean with my diet. And I obviously hadn't been because I was in New York and then I was in Miami eating cake. And, I was at Rachi's 40th birthday. I had a few drinks and, I just knew like this is just taking a toll on me because I've had now 4 days of 4-hour nights of sleep and now I'm sick. And I was out of commission. I did not do anything the entire week I was in Miami, unfortunately, because I couldn't move. I was in bed most of the day. I had juices and broths, and I was just on ibuprofen. And it's inflammation, it's arthritic pain. And I have arthritic pain from my mom and my grandmother. They have this, except they got it at a much later age. And so I think this was kind of always in me. It's like hereditary, but whatever COVID did, it triggered it and it just came sooner, I guess. And so I have to be very strict with what I put in my body because then this happens. And I have been sick before where the joint pain didn't occur. And that actually happened earlier this year before my Canada show, which was a blessing. I mean, it wasn't a blessing that I was sick, but it was a blessing that I didn't have the joint pain. And that's because I had been eating at home for like 3 months straight, like January, February, March. I just stayed home, hunkered down and didn't really eat out and just ate at home and I was healthy. And so that's not realistic. That's not a realistic way to live. And the ibuprofen worries me as well because that takes a toll on your kidneys and your liver. And so, yeah, I did what I had to do just to not be in any pain. I even went for a 2-hour massage, but the next morning the pain came right back. And so my mom's birthday was on a Wednesday. Thank God I was feeling fantastic on Wednesday. And then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I wasn't okay. And then Saturday, I had to go to Dallas and I met my husband in Dallas. And me and my parents, we all went to Dallas because we had a ceremony for my husband's nephews. And it's kind of like a bat mitzvah type thing. And his nephews had their, Hindu bat mitzvah ceremony. And so I was in Dallas Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And I was fine by the time I got to Dallas, like, okay. And then Monday I got back to Arizona and yeah, I've got a lot of things to do. My to-do list is insane. I told you guys I'm moving in silence, so I'm working on something really exciting, but it's only going to happen in 2025. So there's really no point mentioning it now. But it comes out in 2025, but I still have to do all the work now. So I'll get into more detail once things are absolutely confirmed with regard to that project. And then a few of you have DM'd me and have told me you are embodying your future self and you've already seen progress and huge changes in just a week of doing so. Like a listener messaged me and said, I've been, embodying my future self and I already signed a massive contract and got like the biggest business deal of my life. And so I love to hear it. Please share your quantum leaping stories with me. I am in progress, in process, and we are embodying our future selves. Like, just think of yourself right now living in your past. You already know in your head that future you exists. You're just living through the past right now. If that makes any sense. I know that's weird and trippy, but it's true. Because remember, time exists in all dimensions. So everything's happening at the same time. So right now we're also living our past. Kind of trippy. In other news, what did we miss? Everyone is talking or was talking about Harrison Butker. Now, I didn't know who that was, thankfully, and I don't think it's important to know who he is, but basically, you guys might have seen he's a player for the Kansas City Chiefs, and that is the team that Taylor Swift's boyfriend is on. I already forgot his name. That's all I know, that's her boyfriend. And he made a commencement speech at his alma mater, Benedictine College. I guess it's like a Catholic college as well. And in this speech, he emphasized traditional values and focused on his Catholic faith. And he was highlighting the importance of marriage, family, and the sanctity of it all. And he encouraged graduates to prioritize these values over career success and material wealth. Funny coming from a football player who makes millions of dollars. But anywho, this motherfucker's speech drew criticism because, he was basically telling women to stay at home. The whole triad thing, the triad wife movement that we've been talking about, like he was leaning into that. The speech was basically about how women should stay home and that's what's important in a nutshell, right? And like men should go work. It was like really archaic. He kind of jabbed the LGBTQ community and claimed abortion, IVF, surrogacy all come from like a disorder. And I can quote, I think it is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you. Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and children you bring into this world. Okay, that was just a snippet. I have not watched the speech. I don't want to watch the speech. It's just going to make me mad, and I don't do things that make me mad, remember? Future me does not do that. And someone wrote a negative review because I said Yemen was in Africa, and I knew Yemen was not in Africa, but I got tongue-tied and I didn't correct it. And someone left a horrible review saying that I don't fact check. And it's a podcast called Currently Cringing, okay? Like I said, this isn't NPR. It's not PBS or CNN or Fox or any news outlet. And thank you for correcting it in the review. It's in the review now, so people can know that it's wrong, that Yemen is not part of Africa. Thank you. But, I could watch this speech, but I feel like there are enough snippets of it on social media. I got the gist of it. And we're just tired as women of men labeling us or telling us how to be or what to do. And the problem isn't Harrison Butker. It's the collective. It's people, the group of people that think like him. It's a lot of people. And that's what's scary. It's a lot of people in the world and in America. You know, we're supposed to be this modern country, the greatest superpower in the world. You know, we have education. Well, most of the men in this country think like Harrison Butker. And for someone like me who comes from a patriarchal culture, you know, Indian culture, South Asian culture, that's terrifying because you live here to avoid all that nonsense, except you find yourself in it all over again. And when confronted, you know, he doubled down. He was like, well, it just shows that Catholic values are hated now more than ever. I'm like, okay, Catholic values don't hate women. Okay. You hate women. And I just wanted to bring that up because we have been talking about the trad wife movement, and I just see this growing as someone who has gone against the grain and swam against the tide for most of my life. It's terrifying. It's terrifying, and I'm sure those influencers aren't really like that, and they're just making money and cosplaying as trad wives and probably ordering Uber Eats. But the message is just growing, and that's what's concerning. And so, yeah, I don't know. We'll see how that all unfolds. On a lighter note, I always say if you can't beat 'em, join 'em, which is why I have succumbed and I am placing my first order on Temu. And so many people ask me about my clothing line, and let me tell you, I love to design. I love fashion. It is my greatest passion. But after meeting my husband and living through the pandemic and experiencing a series of awakenings, I don't know if I'm aligned with creating more product, more clothing, more junk in this world. We have enough. And as someone who really loves the craft and the art of design, I cannot compete with the Sheins and the Fashion Novas and the Amazons of the world. And there's just so much out there in terms of product, and a lot of it's actually good and nice. Like if you're going to get a beautiful dress on Amazon Prime, that too, in like 24 hours for $25.99, I can't compete, you know, with my costs as a small niche designer who was doing sustainable clothing and sizing from 0 to 32. I couldn't compete with all of these brands. And then you've got the high-end brands like the Alice and Olivia's and the Love Shack Fancies of the world. They've got a lot of investor money behind them. Alice and Olivia, she's married to the grandson of Disney, okay? Walt Disney. And so I can't compete with those people, and I don't want to. Maybe that will change, but for now, I just don't see how it's adding value to the world or the planet. And that's really something I saw after meeting my husband, you know, just we live a minimal lifestyle. We enjoy good food, good travel. We want to live in a nice home, but we don't have excess. We just don't buy things that are unnecessary. We don't want junk. We don't want clutter, and we're happy. And so I don't know if me creating more product is aligned with that lifestyle or my current beliefs with, you know, how I live. And so contrary to that, I placed an order on Temu because you can't beat a pair of sandals and a crochet top for $4.99 each, free shipping. I mean, it's unbelievable and scary. But if you can't beat them, you join them, you know? What are you going to do? Not buy anything? And I'd be the first to admit it to you. I'm confessing to you that those are companies that are polluting the world even more. Amazon, Shein, Fashion Nova, Zara, H&M. But what are we supposed to do? where are we supposed to shop? Especially if small designers like myself, we can't compete with all those big brands like Amazon Fashion. I will let you know though what happens when I get the stuff. I ordered a pair of sandals and a crochet top. Crochet is very expensive, by the way, real crochet. A lot of what you see in the market is polyester machine work. It's not real. Real crochet is cotton and done by hand. And so real crochet, designer crochet, that's why it's like $1,000. Because it probably took like 1,000 sheep to make that. And like 3 people probably put that crochet cardigan together with their bare hands. And I can't compete with a machine making polyester crochet, which probably has harsh chemicals that are going to penetrate into my skin, but YOLO. I'm also drinking regular Coke. And while I was in Miami, I forgot to mention, I finally got my Botox and filler done. I haven't had Botox and filler in a year, and that's because I've been so busy and I haven't had a chance to go to my doctor. And so I made it a point to go to him this year, and life-changing. Just in 48 hours of getting my under eye tear trough filler, my dark circles have like disappeared. They were looking really bad. I forgot how bad they were until I saw my entire face without Botox and filler. But I've always had really deep, hollow under eyes. So that just accentuates the dark circles because it creates like a shadow. So it's like darker than it actually is. But I've also had dark circles since I was a child. And I think it's due to sinus and allergies. I've just always had them. And just 2 days after getting the Botox, it all disappeared. The filler, I mean, under my eyes. And so I highly recommend that under eye filler. It really helps for dark circles and wrinkles, obviously. But I think the color reduced by like 10 shades. Like it's now just really faint. And once I go in for another touch up, it'll fully be gone. And it was nice to get that again because you just want to look like yourself. And I also have severe TMJ, again, from braces. Like I'm not a stressed out, anxious person, but I have severe TMJ. And I think it's because of 6 years of braces and having a severe overbite. And I've been wearing a night guard since I was 15, but while I was filming season 1 of Family Karma, my jaw just grew because of all the stress I was experiencing during filming. And I didn't realize how large my jaw was because of my TMJ. And so I was seeing my face also grow in the past year without the Botox. And now, just in 2 days again of getting the Botox, my masseter jaw Botox, my face is like getting back to its natural shape. And so I highly recommend Botox for TMJ, masseter jaw, Botox, and for dark circles. It really helps with dark under eyes, but you have to go to either a plastic surgeon or a dermatologist. Make sure whoever's doing your Botox is an actual physician, especially in those areas. I know a lot of people go to med spas and nurses and whatnot, or radiologists. As long as it's a doctor, no one cares. Like I care because you really just can't go to anyone. People don't realize injectables, like that's an art. You have to know aesthetics and what the face looks like underneath. Like you need to go to someone who's cut the face open, basically, dermatologist or a plastic surgeon. And I know people don't want to pay those prices, so they go to the cheap med spas, but you have to be very careful, especially if you're doing tear trough filler. That is very dangerous. I just wouldn't do that with anybody. So, word of advice. In sad news, Red Lobster is going bankrupt. And they're going bankrupt not because of what people think the reason is, because people think like, oh, it's their endless shrimp deal. Like, no, that's not why they're going bankrupt. And by the way, growing up, like being in a strict Hindu vegetarian home, me and my sister would save up to go to Red Lobster. We would go like once a year and we would get the shrimp Alfredo pasta and it was delicious. And I have fond memories of their biscuits and just good times at Red Lobster. And it is tragic that we are losing places like Red Lobster and Chili's. It's atrocious, quite frankly. But just like healthcare and many other industries, private equity ruined Red Lobster. So what happened with Red Lobster? Back in 2014, a private equity group called Golden Gate Capital bought Red Lobster for $2 billion. And because they're a private equity firm, all they care about is money, and they wanted a return on their investment. Remember, we want a return on our investment in people. They want a return on their investment with their money. And so if they bought Red Lobster for $2 billion, they want to make more than $2 billion back. And so what they made Red Lobster franchisee owners do was sell the land that the Red Lobsters were on. And that's wild because the most valuable thing when you own franchises is owning the land. And so you're selling the most valuable thing. And then they were making the franchise owners, the tenants, pay rent. And they couldn't keep up with the rent. So they sold all the land to another company that they themselves own. So Golden Gate Capital had Red Lobster sell all the land that the Red Lobster locations were on for $1.5 billion to another company that is owned by Golden Gate Capital. So they basically stole all the land. Literally. That's what they did. They sold and stole all the land and kept it for themselves. And then they made the tenants sign leases and pay rent on the land that they initially actually already owned, that the company owned. And not only did they make them pay rent, they increased the rent to an above market price. That way they're making even more money because now they own the land and now they're renting it out for more money. And this is very common. They basically ransacked Red Lobster, this private equity firm, Golden Gate Capital. And then they're like, all right, we're done with you. And the same thing happened to Toys R Us and a lot of other companies. And it's actually happening in hospitals. Okay. And the doctors are the ones suffering. And I'm seeing it firsthand with my husband. It's shocking, quite frankly. And now Red Lobster is still a valuable brand. So they'll probably be bought out by some company, another company, and, go from there. But now Red Lobster itself is in massive debt because of the mismanagement by the private equity firm. Because the private equity firm, they already got what they wanted now. They sold all the land for $1.5 billion, and then they charged rent at an above market price to Red Lobster and made the rest of their money on the $2.1 billion. And so now there's nothing left and they're done. They've washed their hands. And now Red Lobster's filed for bankruptcy. So yeah. And then for those of you who are into astrology, which I think all of us are, which is why you've stuck with me for so long, Jupiter changed signs on May 25th. And so a lot of you, including me, are going to have a lot of new beginnings. And you should look up what house did Jupiter move into in your astrological chart. For me, it moved into my 10th house of career. So a lot's going to be happening there. And I'm really excited. And I am now working on this big project, which I can talk to you about when I'm done. And yeah, I have to also start packing for Japan and planning Japan. And maybe next time I will give you my Japan-Korea itinerary. I also owe you my China itinerary and my Australia itinerary. There's so much to talk about. But thank you for listening, guys. And DM me, message me, let me know of any questions you may have. And if you're on this quantum leap journey yourself, fill me in, keep me posted. Thank you. Bye.